So let me share my screen. So good evening, everyone. And welcome to our tonight's webinar on a natural approach to menopause. You have three presenters today. So myself, Christine, and Dawn. And today we'll be talking about menopause from a practical perspective. We'll be sharing some, let me just add more people. We'll be sharing some tips and advice on how to manage menopause, so you will not get boring information about what menopause is and what the symptoms are. That's pretty obvious for us women, so we will be not talking about this. But to start with, more and more people arriving, amazing. So let me just admit more people. So I'd like to start with introducing myself. So my name is Anna Pinnock. I'm a registered nutritional therapist. I've been practicing for 6 years, and I specialize in underactive thyroid and Hashimoto, which is an autoimmune condition of the thyroid. I have it myself, that's why I'm really interested in this area. And I support people with other autoimmune conditions such as MS, rheumatoid arthritis, celiac, psoriasis, and so on. A lot of people come to me with gut issues as well and fatigue, so I help them with that. I offer free 30-minute discovery calls, and you can find out more about what I do on my website. So now I would like to pass the introduction to Christine and then Dawn.
So you're going to have to move the slide now because I don't.
Sure, there you go.
So hi everyone, I'm Christine Tompolsky. I am a registered clinical hypnotherapist. I'm also a practitioner of EMDR, EFT, matrix ring printing, if you've come across those things, but if you haven't, that's not a problem. They're just all science-backed tool to help people make changes. And I specialize in anxiety, stress and trauma, and also on weight loss, but for those people who want to change their eating habits and people who have emotional eating difficulties. I also offer a free discovery call. All information is on my website, which you can see here. It's healingtreehypnotherapy.co.uk. Nice to be with you tonight.
Okay, now we pass it to Dawn. Dawn, if you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Obviously, I'm Dawn. Yeah, mine's Dawn. I've been a PT exercise practitioner for around 10 years now, with the goal of helping people enjoy exercise and feel healthier, fitter and stronger. And we, at Horsham, obviously co-owner of Horsham Fitness as you all are members. So I get to see you regularly in the week. And we wanted to put this together with Anna and Christine, so it's a really practical. Hopefully, you get some really good practical advice that can help you, because we understand that the demographic of some of our members, this could be really useful. So yeah, that's why we put it together. So yeah, thank you to Anna and Christine for coming to do this with us.
Okay, thank you. So the agenda for tonight is. It looks pretty lengthy, but the first 6 things will be covered by myself. Then Christine will chat about mental health, stress, and sleep support. And at the end, Dawn will talk a little bit about exercise and movement, especially for menopause. So let's start with the diet and the role of hydration. So as such, menopause diet does not exist. However, a diet should be designed to your specific needs. However, saying that, there are beneficial outcomes associated with Mediterranean diet, paleo, or low carb style diets. And the reason for that is because they are all anti-inflammatory. So you all can implement certain things from these diets into your own diet and make your diet anti-inflammatory. And to do that, the best place to start would be balancing your blood glucose. I will talk about it more in a moment, but I just wanted to mention that this is very important, and without making sure your blood glucose is balanced, you will struggle to get on top of your hormonal imbalances, on top of autoimmune conditions, diabetes, inflammation, fatigue, or even sleep imbalances. And I often see it in my clients. And this is the first thing I always address when it comes to supporting really any health conditions. So another thing you can obviously do is increase your intake of colorful vegetables and fruits, because they contain antioxidants, and they can help to calm down the inflammation in the body. And just wanted to touch on the 5 a day that we all know about. Treat it as a minimum, okay? So this kind of recommendation stems from WHO guidelines, and they recommend that we need to consume minimum 400 grams of fruit and vegetables a day to prevent any serious disease and deficiencies. And our government interpreted it as 80 gram portions of fruit and vegetable a day to give us 400 grams. However, other countries, they have 13 a day. So in Japan, they recommend 13 a day. In Australia, they recommend 7. In Canada, 7, 8 for women and 8 to 10 for men. So there are really different recommendations in different countries. But I really would like to urge you to think that 5 a day is just a minimum, not a target. Cruciferous vegetables. So all the vegetables that, like broccoli, cabbages, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, they contain a molecule that supports detoxification and clearance of hormones by the liver. So it's really important to include them if you would like to support your hormonal balance. Oily fish is another one you can incorporate. Because it's a source of omega-3, iodine and selenium, and all of these help to calm down inflammation. And also iodine is important for health of your breast tissue, and helps to prevent cancers. However, don't go to the shops and buy iodine and selenium and start supplementing yourself, because if you're not deficient and you start using these supplements, you can become toxic in them, and that's not really a good thing. So it's good to start with the foods, so fish, Brazil nuts, things like that, to increase the intake. Also include phytoestrogens, and phytoestrogens is just a name for a plant-based compounds that mimic estrogen function in the body. And these phytoestrogens are contained in fermented soybeans, lentils, flax seeds, chickpeas, and red clover. So make sure you incorporate them in your diet. And obviously, adequate hydration is really important, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you a lot about this. However, make sure you include herbal teas in your daily water intake, and they do count to your water intake. So sage could be good for night sweats and hot flashes, dandelion for water retention. And obviously be mindful of caffeine, because it can set off hot flashes. So I mentioned just a few seconds ago about blood sugar balance. And when you don't balance your blood sugar well, you will experience something that we call, or I like to call, blood sugar roller coaster. And by blood sugar, I mean glucose. So, and glucose comes mainly from carbohydrates that you eat. So from starchy foods, from fruits, from added sugar, so the white stuff. So these carbs are broken down in your intestines into simple sugars, such as glucose. And then this glucose is absorbed into your bloodstream through the intestines. And this glucose becomes your blood sugar or blood glucose. And I'll be using these terms interchangeably. So blood sugar, blood glucose, the same thing. So too much glucose or too little glucose, it's really dangerous for our bodies. And our bodies will do everything to try to keep the blood sugar in a healthy range. So let's imagine you start your day with a piece of toast with jam and very sweet tea or coffee. Your blood sugar will go up very quickly, and then insulin is released, and then blood glucose goes down, crashing down. You may feel hungry, irritable, and you may reach for a pick-me-up food, like a biscuit maybe, or a snack bar. Then you feel a bit energetic for a little bit, you feel better, but your blood glucose goes down again, keeps crashing down, and you maybe, grab something a car before lunch, and this kind of up and down can continue for weeks and months and years for some people. And this is really, you know, this is what you can see on this slide, so up and down. So the gray lines is your healthy blood sugar level, and the red line is the ups and downs of your sugar. And you may ask me, you know, Anna, but why is that such a bad thing? You know, isn't glucose the main energy source for our body? And it is one of the main, it's not the only one. We can make energy from fat, but it is the kind of mainly one that our body likes to use. But you see, every time you have the spike, the insulin is released, okay? And insulin's job is to take sugar away from your bloodstream and put it into your cells to make energy, okay? So if, however, you have more sugar than the cells can use at any given time, it is being converted into fat, and it's being stored into your fatty tissue quite often around the middle. Because liver is responsible for that conversion, so the fat kind of is accumulated around the liver area, around the middle. Yeah, so, and it's important to remember that at any given moment, your body can only handle 1 or 2 teaspoons of sugar. Anything above is going to be converted. And to give you an example, a can of Coke, you can see on the screen there, contains around 7 teaspoons of sugar. Yeah, so if you don't need anything else and you just have a can of Coke, 2 teaspoons will be used for energy, the rest will be converted into fat. Yeah, so high insulin, high fat storage. And there are also other disadvantages for these spikes. So, you know, these spikes can lead to dizziness, cravings, palpitations, sweating, headaches, irritability. Long term, you can experience weight gain. You may find it difficult to lose weight. There will be fatigue, PMS, diabetes, of course, is a problem as well. So essentially, if you want to balance your hormones and manage your symptoms, you want to balance your blood glucose levels. So a little gentle wave, you can see on this slide. And you can do that by swapping these foods you saw on the previous slide with whole foods, with protein, with fiber. And this will lead to increased energy levels, reduction in weight, improved cholesterol, better sleep and so on. And I do see it in my clients. Okay, when we start addressing blood sugar, they do see improvement in energy, they sleep better, and I do see improvement in cholesterol on the blood tests. So it does work. So just one thing I wanted to mention is that blood sugar balance is individual. Okay, the same food can spike blood glucose in one person, but not in other. So there are some things you can think about to kind of gauge whether you have issue with blood sugar control. So I'm going to ask you a few questions and see if you can answer yes to any of those. Then you may have a problem with blood sugar control. So do you feel hungry 2 hours or so after eating? Do you feel sleepy after you eat, or do you crave something sweet? Do you feel energized after your meal? Do you have an afternoon energy dip around 2 or 3 p.m.? And this is a hallmark of blood sugar imbalance. So if you do have any of this, if you answered yes to any of these questions, you probably may benefit from blood sugar balance a little bit. But if you eat your meal and you feel normal, you have no spike in energy, you don't feel tired, nothing, that means you're likely your blood sugar is perfectly fine. Okay, so how can we balance blood sugar? Okay, so I'll give you some advice that I follow myself. So make sure you include protein with every meal, along with fiber and healthy fats. And that means protein-based breakfast. Okay, so definitely having scrambled eggs with spinach or broccoli or smoked salmon will be much better for you than porridge, cereal, or toast. Okay, because by combining all of these fiber and fats and protein together, you will slow down the release of glucose into your bloodstream. So when you start doing these things, you should be able to eat 3 meals a day without snacking. However, it may take you some time to get to this point. So if you need to snack at the moment, perfectly fine. But you will notice, and I see it in my clients, once you start balancing your protein, your fat, your fiber, you will only need to eat maybe 3 times a day. And if you do need to snack on nuts, seeds, vegetables, low sugar fruit. If you have a piece of fruit, an apple or banana, then combine it with nuts and seeds or nut butter. So you can, have healthy fats and protein and fiber together, okay? And it goes without saying, cut down on sugary snacks, beverages, fruit juices, processed foods, ready meals, takeaways. There are a lot of hidden sugars in these. And also it's very easy to overdo sugar if it's in a liquid form. Yeah, so can of Coke, 7 teaspoons, so it's like 35 grams of sugar in 1 can of Coke. So it's very easy to overdo it if you drink the sugar. And lastly, there's a little hack to do. When you have your dinner or lunch, have your veggies first, then have your protein and fat, and then finish with sugars or starchy veggies at the end. And that will kind of blunt the sugar spike after your meal. And there's another thing you can do. And so this kind of having the vegetable first and stuff can reduce your blood sugar spike by about 20%. And also drizzling your vegetables with vinaigrette, anything with apple cider vinegar or something like that, will also lower the spike of blood glucose after your meal. So these are kind of things that you can try if blood sugar is a problem. And I also wanted to show you something like this, and this is a dinner plate. If you would like to balance your blood sugar with lunch and dinner, this is a good template to use. So fill half of your plate with non-starchy vegetables, then 1/4 of your plate with grains or starchy vegetables, and then rest with protein. And this is a very good starting point, and you can adjust it based on your needs. So if you need to put on weight, you may have to increase your grains a little bit and your starchy vegetables. But if you want to lose weight, you may have to lower that and increase veggies or protein. Yeah, so you can work towards your needs, but this is a very good template to work towards. And also the size of your plate, if you wonder about that, look at the size of your palms. Okay, so put them together and see. And your dinner plate should be around the size of your hands. Obviously, the bigger the hands, the more you can eat. So if you have bigger hands, you can eat more. Okay, so that's a kind of easy way to check, the size. The colors show you by the size of your hands. And I mentioned earlier about coffee and caffeine, that it can spike, it can cause the hot flashes. So, you can try some other things which have less caffeine, like green tea and matcha tea and so on. If they still cause a problem, you can try licorice tea, which doesn't have any caffeine in it, and it can give you a bit of an energy boost. Or if you like this type of bitter taste of coffee, you can try chicory or dandelion coffee alternatives. Or you can go with decaf. However, there is still a little bit of caffeine in decaf. And also make sure you pick up Swiss water or CO2 decaf. And CO2 or Swiss water, they're natural ways of removing caffeine from coffee. If the container doesn't state this method, either of these methods, it means they probably use chemicals to remove caffeine from your decaf, and you wouldn't really want to increase the toxin level in your body with coffee. So make sure you pay attention to that. So gut and liver health. Okay, so you cannot fully support your hormones properly while you experience digestive issues. So if you suffer with bloating, reflux, diarrhea, IBS, especially constipation, it's important to address these symptoms. And similarly, if you have a sluggish liver, or it's a bit fatty, or there's any problem around that area, then liver cannot work at full capacity. Yeah, so it's very important to address both of these organs. And the reasons for it is why once you start to address these organs, you will have better absorption of nutrients. So, vitamins, minerals, protein, they all need it for energy production. They need it for hormone production. liver needs a lot of minerals and nutrients, and also protein to detoxify things, or everything in the body needs the nutrients. So by addressing health of these areas, you get better absorption. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about liver, because all the toxins you're exposed to, they go to the liver, okay? And liver then breaks them down into non-toxic molecules, mixes them with bile. Bile is then stored in your gallbladder. Then this bile is released into your intestine, and then it goes to your large intestine, is mixed with the stool, and is excreted, okay? So if you are constipated, this is not very good news, because this waste, these toxins and these spent hormones, because liver also metabolizes kind of hormones, they will stay inside your colon and they will be reabsorbed back into your system, and that can cause imbalances in your hormones. Yeah, so constipation is a big one to address. Diarrhea is not good from the perspective of nutrient absorption, because you cannot absorb a lot of nutrients. But constipation, if you want to balance your hormones, make sure you go at least one a day. And a norm within a health circle is anything from 1 to 3 bowel movements a day is something we should be aiming for. But skipping bowel movement is not great news for hormone balance. Also, inflammation. So if you have IBS, if you have anything going on in your gut, this inflammation can impact any areas in your body, because 80% of your immune system actually sits in your gut. So if you imagine if there is inflammation in your gut, things are not great there. Your immune system will be constantly activated, and that can present as headaches, pains around the body. So once that inflammation is addressed and your gut is working well, a lot of the symptoms disappear as well. And thyroid is also linked to the liver and gut, because the main hormone that the thyroid produces is inactive, and it has to be converted into an active form. And that conversion happens in the gut and in the liver. So if these areas are not working properly, you may have symptoms of sluggish thyroid. And you may experience things such as difficulty to lose weight, hair loss, brain fog, coldness. And some of these symptoms, a lot of these symptoms overlap with menopausal symptoms. So that's why it's very important to address the gut health in hormonal imbalance. And also liver. Liver makes glucose. Liver can make glucose. We don't have to get it from food, but it can make glucose from proteins and fats. And also, majority, about 90% of your cholesterol is made by the liver. Majority of your cholesterol doesn't come from food. Actually, the liver makes it. So if liver is not happy, you may have imbalance in cholesterol. Okay? And also, 80% of your serotonin, which is your feel-good hormone, is produced in the gut. So if your gut is unhappy, the production of serotonin can be decreased, and you may feel low and have sign of depression. So it's very important to address these areas. And there are some things you can do on your own, which are pretty self-explanatory, and I'm sure you're aware of most of them. So you should be eating mindfully, making sure you hydrate properly, and also please eat enough quality protein, okay? Because liver actually uses up a lot of protein for detoxification and for its work. And on average, we need about 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. Obviously, that increases if you exercise heavily and if you're unwell. But for a standard person, it's, so if you're 70 kilos, you need around 70 grams of protein every day. Focus on local foods. Focus, if you can afford it, focus some organic foods. They will decrease the toxins in your food, in your body. Reduce or eliminate pro-inflammatory foods. So these are the foods that cause inflammation or contribute to inflammation to your body. So all the processed foods, all the industrial seed oils, replace them with olive oil, avocado, even butter is better than all the industrial seed oils. include fermented foods and include more fiber, your gut will benefit from that. Your gut flora will be healthier. You'll have more regular bowel movement. Alcohol obviously has not a good impact on our gut and our liver, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in a second. Toxins, similar story, and I will explain about them in a moment as well. Keeping healthy weight is also important, because any extra weight, or if we have a lot of extra weight, this fatty tissue, these fat cells actually can produce hormones that and that contributes to hormonal imbalance, but they also produce inflammation. So if we want to reduce inflammation and if you want to balance hormones, it's a good idea to keep healthy weight. Balance your blood glucose. I talked about that, and include phytoestrogens. I mentioned about them as well. So, alcohol intake. So alcohol causes dilation of blood vessels, and that increases temperature, and that causes spike, that causes spike in temperature, and then can set off night sweats. And apart from alcohol, caffeine and spicy foods can do that as well. Alcohol also exacerbates mood swings and insomnia, and affects bone density. So increases your chances of developing osteoporosis. And there's also one thing that alcohol does to us, and I wanted to mention that. And I'm pretty sure that some of you notice that maybe with age, you don't tolerate alcohol as well as you used to. And the reason for it is declining estrogen levels during menopause affect your liver enzyme. So there is an enzyme in the liver that helps break down alcohol, because alcohol is toxic. And so we want to, so liver wants to break it down and excrete it as quickly as possible. And it does it by involving certain enzymes. And the estrogen impacts this enzyme. So when estrogen level drops, the enzyme's activity drops as well. Okay, and that may result in heavier, more severe signs of hangover, severe headaches, and it all has to do with declining estrogen levels. And if you would like to find out a little bit more about it, there's a link, so you can follow that up and read on this. I wanted to mention the toxins as well, because there's of course there's a lot of toxins in environment. You can get toxins from foods and from within our own bodies. And the reason why it's important to be aware of them, because they act as xenoestrogens. So I mentioned about phytoestrogens, the good kind of molecules in plants that can help us balance or increase kind of estrogen levels. Xenoestrogens are synthetic chemicals found in plastics, cosmetics, household products, preservatives, pesticides, and they disrupt hormonal production. So they can speed the hormonal production, or they can slow it down, and they can cause damage to the cells. They literally rip them apart, and they cause inflammation. So they really are, they called hormonal disruptors, these xenoestrogens. So I wanted to make sure you're aware of these. And there are some things you can do to lower exposure to toxins and xenoestrogens. And they kind of things I'm sure most of you are aware of. So, having good quality food and filtered water, using glass or stainless steel containers and water bottles, using saunas for detoxification, using natural cosmetics or cleaning products, just doing these swaps can help reduce the toxic load. Hair dyes, as it's impossible to find a 100% natural permanent hair dye. I've tried, they don't exist. However, it's possible to find some hair dyes that don't contain as many of these chemicals. Perfumes, plastic bottles, non-stick cookware, just, look around, make some swaps for more natural products, and that will reduce the toxins in your environment. Lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about supplements, because If you've tried everything we will talk about today and you still have some symptoms, it may be that you need gentle encouragement, or your body needs gentle encouragement to rebalance the hormones. And there are some tried and tested herbal formulas, and they may contain the ingredients I listed here. The ingredients in red are herbs. And if you would like to use them, I highly recommend you speak to a qualified herbalist or a practitioner, because herbs are very potent and they can be beneficial, but if you don't know what you're doing, they may cause you harm. So I am not qualified to recommend herbal formulas, because I am not herbalist. I can help you pick some non-herbal over-the-counter supplementation, and they also been proven to work, especially the soya bean extract, isoflavonols. So they very they over the counter, and they test it as well, tried and tested, and they can be helpful. You can also try hops or milk thistle for liver support, B complex for adrenal support, vitamin C for collagen and skin, vitamin E for inflammation. Magnesium is very good for a lot of symptoms, and there are different forms of magnesium for different things. So muscle cramps, insomnia, constipation, headaches, it can be beneficial with that. Different oils, omega-3, borage, there are different oils you can use to help you manage inflammation. And there are other things you can try, such as L-theanine, which is literally just a compound found in tea, and it helps with sleep. And I have to say, I've tried it and it does help. Rhodiola, ashwagandha, they can help with stress management, and maca can help with energy production and also libido. And also sage and red clover, I mentioned, they're more kind of culinary type of plants, so you can use them and they can help with hot flashes and night sweats. And lastly, so there is a brochure you can download and read a little bit more about the supplements, but also other things we've been chatting about. And if you'd like to try any of these herbs, any of the supplements, there is a health food shop in Horsham called The Natural Way, and ladies there are very helpful, and you can go and ask them about any of these supplements, and they'll be happy to recommend something for you. And the last thing before I pass to Christine is that if you tried everything and you still have some symptoms, there are some other things to consider. So, for example, in terms of weight, intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, I'm sure you're aware of these. They are other options to try. Smoking, quitting smoking if you haven't done so, it's a massive, it increases inflammation a lot. And also be aware that any hormonal changes, whether it's menopause, pregnancy, puberty, they can set off your immune system and trigger autoimmune disease. So if you experience any of the symptoms, it may be a good idea to speak to your doctor to check whether you have any of the thyroid diseases like Hashimoto's or Graves'. And also be aware of the risk factors for osteoporosis. So if you've been on a very low calcium diet for years, or if you have vitamin D deficiency, you have increased risk, because vitamin D deficiency, because you need vitamin D to actually absorb calcium from your diet. So there is a link there are some other things you can check that I mentioned here. Another one I just wanted to highlight was antacids, because I know some people are on them for years, even though they only supposed to be on them for like 3 months. Antacids reduce absorption of calcium, iron, B12, so can contribute to a lot of symptoms. And also soft drink consumption, all your fizzy drinks, these are the drinks, these are the things you want to be mindful of, because they increase the risk of osteoporosis. How are we doing with time? That's good, we're doing great. So this is my part of the presentation. I'm going to pass the baton to Christine, and thank you very much for listening. Let me just find Christine. There we go. Christine, you're the host now.
Okay, so I need to, sorry, I didn't expect to have lost the presentation. Just 1 second, I'm going to get it. I've got it somewhere, don't worry.
Okay, I can share it if you want.
all right. Just that I need to go back to where you were.
Right.
There you go. So, be with you. Okay, can you see the screen? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so another thing that we need to consider during the menopause is mental health, which some people obviously cope better with mental health than others. But during the menopause, unfortunately, us women need to be particularly aware of that. And if there are any gentlemen who are there with their partner here tonight, you know, those are also things for you to be aware of, because during the menopause, women may experience feelings of anxiety, stress, and even depression. And there are some very good reasons for that, like Anna's just obviously explained the influences on the body of the changes in the hormone levels. And one of those is the impact that the lowering of the estrogen has got on the cortisol hormone, which, as you know, the cortisol hormone is the stress hormone. We need the stress hormone to help us cope with stress, but we all know that too much cortisol, too much stress is definitely not good for our body physically and mentally. And what happens is that this the estrogen are actually used to keep cortisol in balance. So when we reach the menopause and those estrogen levels drop, then the balance is broken, and it becomes a lot more difficult for a lot of people, a lot of women, to deal with stress, feeling more triggered by stress. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that there's lots of changes happening in our bodies, whether that's the tiredness level, whether that's the changes in our bodies. And one of them is the lack of sleep. So lack of sleep, immediately you're more sensitive to stress, you're more prone to anxiety and things like that. So this is another good reason. And the third reason are the psychological factors, which a lot of the time people don't talk about, but, you know, during this time in a woman's life, there will be changes perhaps in the way we perceive ourselves, in our interpersonal relationships, in our role as a woman, and all sorts of things which may affect perhaps our identity, and also, you know, the way that we used to be and maybe are not able to be anymore. So all this will affect how we feel mentally. So let me, okay, why is my screen not moving on? That's it. So how do we address stress during the menopause? Well, quite frankly, in the same way that we do the rest of the time, we just have to be particularly attentive to it. A lot of us actually let often stress build up before and you know, and when it's too late and we really need to trigger. So just a few things for you to keep it practical and sure to keep in mind. The first one is exercise. So I know Don will talk briefly about exercise, and all you guys, if you're here tonight, I know you already exercise, but exercise has been proven to have a beneficial impact on mental health. And all I would want to say about this tonight from a stress management perspective and from a mindset perspective is that it's really important to choose a type of exercise that suits you. Because if you get stressed, or if suddenly your mental health goes you know, down, you're likely to perhaps be discouraged to carry on with your exercise. But if you do something that you like, something that makes you feel good, you'll be more likely to carry on. So it might be watching fitness, or it might be dancing, or it might be swimming, but just keep that in mind to make you, you know, keep yourself motivated. And the other thing would be from an exercise point of view, from a stress management point of view, is make sure that you have calm promoting exercise as well. Maybe yoga, maybe qigong, tai chi, stretching, and things like that. The next thing is relaxation. That's going to sound like really obvious, but how many of us actually set some time for relaxation? A lot of the time, some of my clients, they say, oh, well, my time for relaxation is sitting in front of in the TV in the evening, but most of the time it's not really proper relaxation. It's just, dumping your thought. Perhaps your thoughts are still running through your mind. What kind of activities really make you relax? It might be an artistic activity. It might be going fishing. I don't know. That's probably a men's activity. But just think about the activities that actually do generally produce proper relaxation. And it might be that, you need to have a bit of time to do meditation or, doing some mindfulness, things like that. A doctor, a GP told me once that when we get burnt out, it would take a minimum of 3 days in bed, relaxing, doing non-stimulating activities, and really switching off to start to give a chance to the body to recover, and therefore the mind. So we really don't want to get to that point, because that would only be the start. The next thing is connecting with nature. Now, one thing that is lovely about doing the classes with Don and Katie is that it's outside. Well, that's one thing that I like. But connecting with nature, there's loads and loads of research about the benefits of being outdoors and taking time outdoors, really noticing nature around you, whether that's the trees, whether that's the birds, the animals, and so on and so forth. So it's really important that to keep that in mind, because it might be just a walk in the park, in the countryside, in a forest. You might want to try out Shirin Yoku. I don't know if you're familiar with that Japanese concept of forest bathing, which, by the way, I've discovered there's a place in Crawley, which I've not experienced yet. But it's all around making sure that you are developing this contact with nature. So spending time in the garden and so on and so forth. The next one is me time. In hindsight, I could have possibly put it into relaxation, but it's got an additional dimension with me time. It's really this time where sometimes you do things that you relax. You could say you relax when you're surrounded with your family and things like that. But there are times that we need where it's really just for us. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Whatever it is that you like to do, whatever you need to pamper yourself with, keep that in mind. It's really important to have time just for you. Eating well, decreasing stimulant. Anna has given you loads of information about that, so I'm gonna move on. I'll just say one thing is she did talk already about smoking, and a lot of people believe that smoking helps them distress, and I can tell you that all the scientific evidence shows that this is definitely not true. The next thing that you've got on this list is breathing. Now, a lot of people refer to it as deep breathing exercise. I prefer to call it what it is, which is abdominal breathing. And I would advise different types of breathing exercises depending on stress or anxiety or even for panic. But essentially what it means is a lot of us have forgotten how to breathe properly. And basically, we tend to breathe more from the upper part of our chest. And this is what happens naturally when we get stressed. Now, the more we do that, the less oxygen we get, the more stress we get. Okay, that's what happens. The fight or flight reaction when you run, trying to run away from some kind of danger. That's what the body will do because it's helping you to protect yourself. But unfortunately, it perpetuates itself and it doesn't help you to reconnect with yourself. So abdominal breathing exercises will help you to send the message back to your brain that it is time to relax. I don't have probably much time. If we have time at the end, I'll probably give you a bit more information about that. But these are good to practice on a regular basis so that you can really learn to relax a lot quicker through breathing. The other thing is staying connected, socializing, making sure that you have people around us. The reason for that is because when we feel low, when our mental health is not great, there is perhaps a tendency to isolate each other, to maybe not look out for those things. And one thing that I would say, just make sure you surround yourself with the right people, the people that make you feel good. And another one, the next one is sleep, which I'm going to talk in a little bit more detail in a moment on the next slide. Before I move on to the next slide, if you want to have more information, in fact, a few more tips about stress management, I've got a blog on my website. Feel free to go and read it. The link will be in the presentation. So, sleep. Now, we've already established that we're likely to have more disrupted sleep during the menopause. So it's really important to do as much as we can to improve that. Sleep is a big topic, so I'm going to run through some essentials with you, but obviously there wouldn't be time to go in a great amount of detail. Nevertheless, when we want to improve sleep, the first thing that we want to do is really to make it a priority. A lot of us say we want to sleep more, but do we actually give ourselves a chance to go to bed at a reasonable time to make the time for the sleep? Another thing is to make sure that you have a regular pattern. You know, sometimes we think, oh, we're so tired, we want to have a lying at the weekend, but actually it's more beneficial to have a regular wake up and a regular going to bed time, even at the weekend, than trying to catch up at the weekend. It just disrupts your cycle and therefore would not be beneficial. Review your sleep hygiene, things like temperature, the light, if you're sensitive to it, the blue light, which is the amount of screens that you look at before bed, which all will impact the quality of your sleep. It's recommended to have stimulating exercise at least 3 hours before bed. So if you're going to the gym or doing anything else, make sure you give yourself enough time if you have difficulty sleeping, because that would disrupt it. Similarly, it's recommended to eat at least 2 hours before bed to help the digestion. I also recommend a wind down routine. And by that, I mean, what do you do before getting to bed? Do you really give yourself time to, wind down is really that. You give yourself a chance to relax. So do you go straight from finishing, something something to do with housework or getting the kids to bed and trying to go to sleep straight away? It's important to have a wind down routine, whatever it might be for you. Just think about it. Avoid alcohol, because a lot of the people think alcohol will help you sleep. Unfortunately, it will disrupt your sleep. It might put you to sleep at the beginning, but it will disrupt your sleep and the quality of your sleep. If you have a busy mind, what I like to suggest is one thing that is really helpful is to plan what you have to do the next day, the night before. And that way you can just get it out of the way. In fact, plan it and write it on a piece of paper. That's it. That way it's out of your brain. And one way of doing that I think is really powerful is if you write everything that you have to do for the next day, the things that are on your mind that you're concerned of forgetting, and then take that piece of paper to another room than the bedroom. Okay. And it might be the kitchen, if that's where you want to find it in the morning, or it might be the corridor or whatever. But take it to another room and just say to yourself, tomorrow is another day, so that you're physically leaving that piece of paper behind to help you to let go of that. However, I'm sure that if you will have heard that if you're really busy and you worry to forget something at night, it would be better to start with what I've just said. But if the worst comes to the worst, there's always a possibility of having a piece of paper and a pen next to you to write down some things if you wake up during the night. Personally, I've got mixed feelings about that, because you put on the light and so on and so forth. But, just things to keep in mind if you have a busy mind. but remember to try and relax before going to bed. Focus on quality instead of quantity, because sometimes we're so anxious, get ourselves stressed about making sure we've got those 8 hours that everybody tells us we need to have. And that actually is counterproductive. So if you've slept well with 7 and you feel good in the morning, just remember that you can still do great things with 7 hours. Okay. Avoid snapping unless you really can't function. Sometimes people say, oh, I'm just a little bit tired, I'm gonna go and have a snooze. Better to avoid that if you have issues sleeping, unless you really cannot function. If you brain has let you down, then do go for a nap. But otherwise, no, it would be counterproductive in the evening. And notice the language that you have around sleep. That often, if we keep saying to ourselves, oh, I didn't sleep, so I can't do this, and so on and so forth. This is kind of negative influencing language. So just think about the things that are working well with your sleep. That's it. So just a few tips. I'm going to pass on to Dawn for exercise and movement. I can move the slides if you want, Dawn, or I can check something.
No, hi guys. No, that's cool. Keep it on there, Christine. That's perfect. I won't take too long because there might be a few questions, and I know we're running nearly to 9 o'clock, so I'll keep it pretty short because what you guys have just said has been fantastic. Lots of practical advice, and obviously, Christine, you've gone into training in a bit of detail there as well. So yeah, obviously, probably 20 years ago, something like weight training, strength training was probably not considered to be something that people would look to do. And what we're trying to do at Horsham Fitness is definitely trying now, and a lot of the fitness industry really is trying to promote more strength training, and that can only have a really positive effect when it comes down to sort of going through the menopause, and as Anna said, when it comes down to sort of the risk of osteoporosis, things like that, where we can look to kind of introduce strength training, that's going to be a very positive thing. So when it comes down to what we do at Horsham Fitness, obviously we're looking to also combine like endurance exercise. So we look to do a mixture of that when it comes down to what we offer. So we've got our strength training that we generally use with kettlebells and dumbbells. And you probably see me and Katie come up to you and go, okay, could you progressively maybe lift, don't lift that 8 kilo, could you lift 10 kilos? And that's called progressive overload, and that's going to help you get stronger within reason, guys, within reason. But if we can get stronger, that's only going to have a positive effect. On the other side of things, we also want to be looking to be introducing things like Christine said, yoga, and some mobility maybe in the evening, and Pilates, for example, stuff that's a little bit more low impact. Not low impact, maybe a little bit more low stress, maybe, which can kind of help you with that as well, and as we say here, like manage the stress and menopause related symptoms. So yeah, it's pretty much trying to make sure we find a balance, and that's what we look to provide with our programming, is a balance of strength training and cardiovascular exercise. So you get a mixture. So hopefully that will help you. And obviously we're outdoors as well, which is always nice. As Christine said, trying to connect with nature, be outdoors is only going to be beneficial, especially when the weather gets a little bit better. It might make it a little bit easier. But yeah, what I'm going to do now, guys, is pass you back to Anna, and then we're going to open up a bit of a forum for the next kind of 5 to 10 minutes. That is, if anyone's got any questions, that it'll be a fantastic time to ask them. So yeah, you don't have to, you can either put them in the chat below, or you can come off mute and ask a question.
There is actually a question in the chat for Anna. Can proteins for breakfast include things like yogurt, with fruit and nuts and chia seeds, etc.?
Yes, definitely. So you're looking at this. These are plant-based proteins. So the nuts and seeds and yogurt itself that contain protein, fats and fiber in nuts and seeds. And fruit, just don't overdo the fruit. So focus on low sugar or low glycemic fruit. So your berries, currants, black currants, things like that, blackberries. But the main thing is to observe your reaction. How are you full for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours? How long you staying full for with after that breakfast? If it's only 2 hours, then either your ratios of fruit and protein is wrong, or your portion is too small, or there's not enough fiber. So you just you have to experiment with your own food and how you're feeling after eating, whether that's the right thing for you. Essentially, it's really a lot about experimentation. And yes, someone mentioned in the chat about glucose goddess, and yes, so she came up with. I mean, it's not her invention, but she promotes the way of eating, having vegetable fiber first, and protein and fat and starches at the end, adding vinegar or drinking apple cider vinegar before your meals, 20 minutes, and so on. So she is responsible for spreading all of these news. This is nothing new, but she is very hot on these tips and hacks on Instagram.
There's another one from Anna Campbell saying, what fermented foods are recommended?
Any you can tolerate. So sauerkraut, kimchi, gherkins, pickles. And if you don't like these, you can consider fermented drinks or kombucha or water kefir. You can buy them, or you can make them at home, which is probably much cheaper now because everything is so expensive. But one note of caution: if you've never tried sauerkraut or kimchi or anything like that, go with a very small size portion to start with and build up, because if you're going to go and have a handful, you'll have a revolution in your digestion. So to save you from that, just start with small and small portion and build up.
Another question is, Anna, what are your thoughts on coconut oil, or is extra olive oil better?
Because extra virgin oil.
Extra virgin oil, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it? I mean, I use both. So in my kitchen, I use extra virgin olive oil, and I use it for salads and for shallow sautéing, so not deep frying, anything like that. But I also use coconut oil for curries, for my granola. So I melt it and I put on top of my granola to bake it. So when you look at oils, you need to look at smoking point. So this is the point at which the oil becomes starts to smoke, and that's so you want to get an oil that has a high smoking point, and coconut oil is one of these oils. And extra virgin olive oil has low smoking point. That's why it's not good for deep frying or anything like that, or baking, because the temperature changes the composition of it, and it loses all the good compounds and anti-inflammatory compounds in it. So best to use it cold.
Got another one in the chat, Anna.
When thinking about meat as a protein source, is high wealth organic better than more standard lines? Yes. So essentially, you need to think about what the animals eat. So if they fed with grains, and grains have a lot of omega-6 in them. So if they're fed with grains and corn, and also they're not happy, so if they in enclosures and they never go out and they're stressed, the quality of the fat composition in meat is going to be worse than if you have a cow, which happy cow on the field eating grass. That cow will have a lot of far more omega-6s in the meat. There is omega-6 in meat and in beef. So definitely better to do so. And if you, what I do, I go to the new street butchers, and they source their meat from local farms, and they're not necessarily certified organic, but I know they're from local farms. And I know like pork is free range, so the pigs are actually outside in Storrington on the fields. You can see them when you drive. So they have good quality meat there. So I would definitely, if you limit it on budget, at least spend some money on good quality meat. And if you go to a website called Pesticide Action UK, you can get a handout on the use of pesticides in fruit and vegetables in the UK. And you can see, it's called Dirty Dozen Clean 15. And they have the same in America, but they created our UK version. And you can see which fruits and vegetables are commonly sprayed. And you can maybe prioritize these fruits and vegetables in terms of organic, and don't worry about the rest and buy them standard. So that's what I do. Citrus fruit is definitely sprayed, grapes, berries, green things, they often spray it. So I just focus on organic when it comes to these things, but non-organic for other things. So I'm not spending all of my earnings on food because it's so expensive. But there are ways around it. But yeah, there is a difference between cheap meat and good quality meat. And also, it's not there, but the way you prepare your meat, definitely. Deep frying, barbecuing. I know it tastes nice, not good. Not good for cancer, not good for a lot of things in terms of the smoke, the chemicals because the smoke, there are chemicals in the smoke that stay on the meat and you then eat it and you increase your carcinogenic risk. So, shallow, slow cooking, I use slow cooker, pressure cooker. Baking is even better, but just don't make it like dark and charcoal like. And I think that will be for you, Christine. And it apps for breath work and meditation.
And apps for breath work or meditation. Well, there are lots of them around. Headspace is one of the most popular ones. And I would say it's good to just try them out because everybody likes different things, wants different things. So if you're not sure, try with something, that's quite like Headspace and see what happens. And now I think you've got one on Drive.
Yeah, I think in terms of meditation, there is I found out of a free source some nice meditations on UCLA. Is the American, I don't know, it's a University of Los Angeles or something, UCLA. If you Google UCLA meditation, free meditation, they have a nice list of meditation you can listen to, like ranging from 3 minutes to 20 minutes. Meditation for sleep, meditation for different things.
There you go.
But
and it's on YouTube as well.
Yeah,
that you can choose from.
But I also wanted to say what Christine said about sleep. Definitely, when I work with my clients or twinning clients, we cannot get someone. I cannot get someone better if they don't sleep well. Is the fundamental aspect for any type of condition, and it is something that people neglect, and I've been neglecting it for a while, but now I know better. It's just so crucial, and it's really, if you cannot prioritize other things, just focus on sleep and you're going to see benefits. And there was another question about fruit, dried fruit. I would avoid dried fruit, or if you combine it with nuts and seeds and yogurt and you don't have a lot of other sugary fruits in your breakfast, then that should be fine. But I just, again, observe how you feel and don't go overboard. And also make sure there is no added sugar or anything, because a lot of these dried fruits, they have sulfates and some other, sugary things added to them. So again, it's just moderation and observing your own symptoms, how you feel after you eat them. But a few apricots, they're not going to change a lot in your body if other things are not in place. So there is no magic bullet, unfortunately. I know some clients my clients would like that, but there isn't. You just need to work on certain things. Just pick your priority, work on it, and build on top of on top of the previous thing. Someone mentioned Greener Greens. That's a local company. I've heard of them. They're very good for organic foods, for organic vegetables. Claire is asking if anyone wants to try forest bathing you know, so that's
I'm up for it.
I think it's about going into, you know, go and hike some trees, but I think they do, like, they go into the forest and they have breathing, meditation or breathing.
Meditation.
Yeah, that's what they do. And some nuts are some nuts better than others. Tricky. It depends what you're after. And so one thing I wanted to mention, definitely peanuts are not nuts. So don't think of them as nuts. They are not. They're legumes. They grow underground in shells. They don't grow on trees. So they don't. So I wouldn't consider them as nuts. Walnuts are good if you want to increase omega-3 from plant sources. And then just whatever you like, really. Pecans, macadamia, try. Selenium is in Brazil nuts. Try, you know, get different nuts and try them. I like macadamia. They're expensive, but they're very tasty. Pistachios are great. Cashews are more, you know, some of them are more in fat, some of them more in protein, some of them have a bit more carbs. But the best thing is just, like with anything, don't eat one thing, just make sure you eat variety. The same with vegetables, the same with nuts and seeds, just mix them up. Sunflower seeds, pumpkin, chia, flax seeds, you know, any nuts you can, that would probably be the best thing to do.
Someone is asking about eating almonds with skin not being good for you. Lisa.
It's tricky to answer. There isn't it depends on the person, and there isn't many things in nutrition that are bad for you or good for you. It really depends on the person, whether you can tolerate. I don't know what would be in this case, a bit of some molecules, or I wouldn't worry about them. You know, if you eat them in moderation, not in big quantities, I don't think there is much in there to worry about. I would definitely don't worry about skin on almonds. James Nestor book Breathe has some different breathing exercises in it.
Yes, different resources on breath work that you can try out as well, either this book or, you know, on YouTube. There's different things. Again, I think for my perspective in the work that I do, different types of breathing exercises are, you know, more suitable for different situations, but it's good to have just an awareness and remember abdominal breathing as opposed to just doing the breathing from the top of your chest. And someone mentions Linnesley has got forest bathing, which is great. It's just that it's a little bit pricey to just go in there. So, you know, feel free to try that if you've got a membership. And there's a place in Crawley, which I think is free of charge.
And on the breathing exercises, I personally like 4-7-8. So if you Google 4-7-8 breathing, it's actually, you inhale on 4, keep the breath for 7, exhale for 8. And I found this breathing, so there are different ones, isn't there? Box exercise or square, 4 and 4. There are different ways. I personally like 4-7-8.
The key thing to remember, if you are stressed or if you, particularly if you experience anxiety, which can happen to anybody for any type of situation, the exhale is the really important part. So it's having much longer exhale than inhales. In that respect, one technique which is good to remember is a count of 7 to breathe in, a count of 11 to breathe out. It's not seconds, it's just your counts, just to make you connect with the fact that it's going to be longer exhale. And the reason that is important is because that this longer exhale, if you do it properly with abdominal breathing, will basically relaxing your abdomen, will trigger a nerve called the vagus nerve, which is starts at the back of your skull and connects with all sorts of organs. And it is this particular nerve which is going to be able to get the message back to your brain that now it's time for relaxation. You know, you're not in fight or flight anymore, and it's time to relax. And to be honest, you know, just do it for even a couple of minutes and you'll see the difference.
Yeah. Any more questions? If you just want to ask something now, just unmute yourself, we can help you out. If not, it's 9:10 or 9:12.
Yes, it's quite late, is it?
I think we'll probably wrap it up there. I think.
Okay, so
And then
yeah.
what we could do is maybe if anyone's got any questions, they can put it on the thread on Spond. And yeah, and what we're going to do, guys, is get Anna and Christine's info, their business info, is going to go on the newsletter that we send out at the end of the month, and we'll put it also on Spond as well, so you can access their website and both their websites. So yeah, I don't know if you want to finish up with anything, girls.
No, I just wanted to say thank you for coming tonight, because we overran a little bit, but hopefully you found this useful. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to have a chat. Non-obligation, just I'm happy to help out. Just let me know. And if you recognize me, yes, I did go to Horsham Fitness. So if you do recognize my face, that's where you recognize me from. And Christine?
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Christine.
No problem. Thank you all for coming and saying
Thank you.
if you have questions.
Okay.
Let me know.
Brilliant. That was fantastic.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good
Brilliant.
night.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.